And so without further ado, let's start on the session this morning, which is hosted by Callbi Speech Analytics. If there's more information that you need about it, well, send it on after today's session. So just some quick housekeeping. Yes, the webinar is being recorded. I did remember to hit the record button this time, and I will do an edit on it and make it available straight after the session this afternoon. Please use the Q&A channel to submit any questions or queries. There's also a chat line open, so you can engage with us as hosts or with other attendees. And if you just keep your questions as simple as possible, if we aren't able to answer them in this particular session, we'll certainly be able to address them offline. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our guest facilitator this morning, Henriette Potgieter. She's a speech analyst specialist and a dedicated Callbi trainer. She comes from Cubic Consulting. Henriette, if you would join us and just very briefly give a headline of your background in contact centers, how many years, and in particular, if you just touch on your role and your qualifications in COPC. Henriette?
Excellent. Thank you, Rod. Thanks a lot. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm very excited to chat to you this morning, and it's nice to see you spend some time with us. So my background, just to introduce myself, I've been in call center my whole career. So it's moving on past 20 years now, where I've started from the bottom, being an agent all the way up. I've done captive, I've done outsourced. I've moved in the various departments, support departments, very strong QA, project management, operations, call center management. Call center is my food. That's what I do. That's my passion. Through that and through my career in call center, I've also upskilled and I've qualified. And what Rod referred to, I'm a COPC implementation lead. So I'm currently upskilled to the latest release. COPC, for those who doesn't know, it's an international framework. It's a best practice contact center or customer contact center framework. So what it does, it prescribes and it gives guidelines for all the processes you need to have in place, a framework and guidelines for what you need to do to ensure efficiency, to ensure low cost, high revenue, high customer service, and high good customer experience. So that's the COPC stuff. I love looking at best practice. Does something work? If it doesn't work, how can you make it better? And ultimately to get customer and business improvement. And that's me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Henriette. So let's cut to the chase on this one. This is not going to be a full-on demonstration of Callbi and Callbi's capabilities. Anybody wanting one of a full-on personal demonstration, please just let me know and we'll certainly be delighted to set up a session for you. So this morning we're focusing in on the theme, which is how do we use Callbi Speech Analytics to carry out 100% call assessment and scoring. And this is Henriette's speciality. So I'm going to pass you over to Henriette, and she's going to share a screen. But just before I do that, people do sometimes ask, how does this whole technology work? Without going into details, as you can see on the slide there, it's uploading of the voice files, ingestion into the cloud. We're using Amazon Web Services. A lot of the art and science is in the transcription engines which have been developed within the Alpha Wave group down in Stellenbosch. And then, of course, transcribing it into text. Thereafter, there's indexing. And as Henriette will show you shortly, building queries and then extracting the analytics and those insights which can radically transform the way the business operates. So once again, there's an interaction, a recording, transcription. Callbi is currently English, or South African English, very important to bear that difference in mind. Afrikaans, isiZulu, and Sesotho, with other languages in the pipeline for development. So it's using those language libraries, building the queries, which you'll see in a few moments. Henriette will also show you the analytics and dashboards, and the ability to export data into any other third-party, Power BI, for example, to get those deep insights into the operation. So what we started out here this morning is a very, very simple, typical call center QA score sheet. As you can see there, Henriette and I put this together yesterday afternoon to try and keep it very simple. Call opening, we'll be looking for some compliance issues. We'll be looking at handle time, and we'll be looking at customer experience. And as you can see there, the descriptions, within those descriptions, we're looking for keywords, which Henriette will explain. And we've given it just a hypothetical rating in there, so it will enable us to use the technology to carry out 100% scan of all the calls in or out of the contact center and appropriate the scorings on it. So at this point in time, Henriette, it's over to you. If you would open up your screen share and fire up Callbi, and the floor is yours.
Excellent, thanks, Rod. If you can quickly just stop sharing on your side, and then I can share on my side. Brilliant, let me quickly just do that. Okay, I've started sharing. If you can please just confirm as soon as you're able to see it.
I'm seeing it.
Okay, excellent. So everybody, like Rod has shown you, we've done, for purposes of today's demonstration, it's a very basic scorecard. I know obviously it gets a lot more intricate and you get a lot more sections and more things that you look for. But in the essence of keeping it short and simple and to bring home the point of how you can score using queries, we decided to just keep it simple and to the basics for today. So what you see in front of you, this is Callbi. I'm not going to take you through the whole Callbi. I actually want to take you through how you take your QA scorecard and those checkpoints that we've looked at today and how you now can build a query. Like Rod has explained, and I always explain to everybody, in a nutshell what Callbi does, if you think about the lady sitting in a courtroom, typing the whole conversation to ensure that you've got a written text. This is basically what happens with your call recording. So whatever was spoken word has now been translated into written text. And a query is basically where you write the formula or the request for Callbi to go search through those text transcripts to then look for specific words and phrases. So to bring it back into your QA and your normal QA process, currently you would probably have agents, a human resource, sitting, listening for words and phrases. Now with Callbi, when you write the query and it's 100% of all your calls that's been transcribed, Callbi can search through millions of calls, and I've seen it, where we've got over 3 million calls, where once you write a query, it's within a couple of minutes that it will look through those calls. It would flag for you wherever a word or phrase is picked up or wherever it is then not picked up. So I'm going to take you through the process, but the beauty is that no longer do you need to sit and listen to understand whether something was done, but rather now you can start focusing on where you need to coach or train or improve or do something, because you can flag your outliers without human intervention in terms of listening and spending time to try and assess. So in front of you, you'll see this is just your dashboard view, but I'm going to take you into the queries. You'll see that I've already started building some of those. I mean, looking at the call opening, all the various things they need to do. What I'm going to show you is just a simple query. I'm going to build the one for calls are recorded. So just so that you can see the process as well. There is, so that you know, there is a process of query verification and accuracy. I know that's always everybody's question. There is a process that you will go through once you've built a query, just to ensure that you are comfortable with the accuracy, that it doesn't flag falsely. Obviously for today, I'm not going to go through the process because I want to demonstrate the QA functionality. So very basic query building. What I'm going to show you today, let's build one for the calls are recorded statement. So we're going to give it a name, compliance calls are recorded. Just going to give it a short description. Let's say the agent informed, and apologies for the spelling, it's because I'm thinking faster than I'm typing. Agent informed customer that calls are recorded. Now in here is where you start adding those words or phrases related to the statement or related to what you are looking for that should have been said within that conversation. Now, obviously here, what we would be looking for is calls recorded. You would see with Callbi, it allows you to have certain words in between, phrases in between, up to 4 words. So you can decide, obviously, as you go into the more complex query building, you'll add more and use exact, etc. For now, like I said, I'm keeping it basic. I'm going to add a phrase, call recorded. Related to that could, for instance, be for security purposes, which would have been part of that same statement. And I'm just going to add one more for quality purposes. Now, obviously, you would add whatever is related, and you would refine the query as you go through your accuracy process. But just to show you, now that we've added these and you save your query, you'll see at your bottom, it now calculates your results against all of your calls. So what Callbi is doing now, it's looking through all those text transcripts for one of these words or phrases. Now you will see at the bottom, it's going to now show us the result, and what we can see is currently based on this query. Out of the 35 calls that we currently have in the training instance that I'm using for you today, 77% of those contained one of these words or phrases. Now there is a process where you can go through it very easily, where if you click on the call, it will take you straight into that transcript and it would highlight for you exactly that one spot where it was said. So this is also where you can verify, or where a QA resource can hit straight to that spot. They can go listen, they can mark, or they can do what they need to do. So that's just in an essence the query building side. Similarly to how you can build a positive query to look for something that is there, you can also flag calls where it isn't there, so where it isn't present. Now, obviously, this would help you where you need to flag agents, where you need to train or coach or do something. Before I move into the negative, just want to check, Rod, are you still comfortable? Could you think of anything that you maybe wanted to ask, or have we had any questions thus far up until now?
The only point I think I'll raise is that we are in the process of developing a library, literally of hundreds of words and phrases that are used typically in the process of setting up queries. So for example, if you're in the collections business, I think we have about 600 words and phrases in a separate directory, which very soon will be integrated into Callbi. So we're going to be creating these libraries of typical queries. So that accelerates the process of setting you up and getting you operational and getting value. Thank you, Henriette. Back to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Rod. And that is a good point. It will definitely help because it would be there and available to choose. So like I've said, once you can also, as you flag things with words or phrases in it, I'm going to show you because I've already built the negative or inverse queries. But you can also have queries that looks for where it is not there. So look, for instance, here, compliance negative, which I've named it no calls recorded statement. So you'll just see in here, and this has been built out a bit more, but it would now look for calls that does not contain that statement. So without further ado, I'm going to take you into the actual dashboard and scorecard, because this is now where you start scoring your calls and you start seeing QA percentages. Now, going into the dashboards, and I'm going to take you back just to think back to that Excel sheet we had, where you've got a rating, you've got a check, and it then calculates a percentage based on what was passed or what was failed. Now, I'm going to just create a new scorecard layout for you under here. Callbi is very user-friendly, and you will see as you use it and you start getting used to it, it's almost intuitive. It's not like something where you need a degree to actually work it. So you need to be trained once and you go through the process. And then you can start building your stuff and play around with it and you'll see the outputs. So in here, I'm just going to say example, and let's build a compliance QA scorecard. So let's look at the compliance section for now. Under your type, and this is where the scorecard, you have an actual selection to select a scorecard type. You can also group it by agent or by team if you then have that data available as part of your call and metadata file upload. So I'm going to group this one by agent. We want to see a scorecard. Now here is where you now basically build that Excel sheet, but where you add each query which would be relevant to the scorecard that you are building. So you can have various scorecards, like I've got here, you've got a compliance, you can have a customer experience, you can have negative scorecards, positive. I'm going to build a positive. So in here, let's add the compliance queries. Firstly, did they ask security questions? And like I said, there's not a lot because we're keeping it short. Did they confirm date of birth or ID? And there is one more compliance. Calls are recorded. Now in here, that rating, which you typically would get, some are more important than others. Here you can either input the percentage weighting, or you can input a scores system like we had on the Excel example. So let's make it just for purposes of now 5 and 3 and 5. We are in the process as well of adding a critical flag indicator, which would obviously be, I mean, if your critical fails, it would then indicate on your scorecard. At the moment, it's not yet there, but it is on the roadmap currently being developed. So now that you've added your queries, you've built your card, let's save it for you. It's created your scorecard, and what you will see on your scorecard, grouped by agent. As per your filter, you've got a way to filter. So if you only want to look at a specific week, a specific month, only specific agents, specific teams, or any of these additional fields, you've got available to go look for it. So for instance, on a call outcome, which helps a lot, if that is added as your metadata, is if you only in an outbound environment want to score actual sales calls, you will filter on sales. Or in collections, you only want to look at promise to pay calls, examples like those. But you would set your filter. Your scorecard then shows you every single call that matches that filter. And this is what we talk about, 100% of calls being assessed against that query. So it would show you the number of calls included for that agent. It also then, as you scroll to your right, would show you a column for each of your queries or checks as per your checklist. You'll see the weighting is calculated based on what you input as a rating for weighting. And under there, it shows you the percentage of calls that positively matched the query. So in QA speak, or in QA terms, this would be your percentage passes for the check. And based on your weighting, it would calculate your overall percentage score for that call population. So very easy here to immediately flag outliers. If you've gone through your query process, your accuracy process, you're comfortable and confident with your query, you can immediately start focusing on outliers. Or here we can immediately see, hang on, something is wrong around security questions, or the date of birth, they're not asking it. So this immediately feeds back into your training, new take-ons, your processes, also coaching, flagging agents, because if you now click from a scorecard, it takes you into your list of calls, and it opens up the specific calls for that agent that you can then go into. You can open the call, you can listen to it, you can train on it, and you can coach on it. So that was building a positive scorecard. I'm just going to show you one more thing, how you can also flag, like I've said, where agents are not doing specific things, which makes the process so much easier, where people can now focus on going in on the list and coaching and effecting change and improvement instead of listening to calls to find the agents. So I'm going to build one negative card for you. Let's make this a call list. Example, to say that calls are recorded, not mentioned. Now remember, this is where I've shown you the inverse or the negative query. So I'm going to create a call list grouped by agent. I want to see number of calls. Now I'm quickly just going to set my filter. I want to see calls per agent that matches the query. For compliance negative, no calls recorded. Obviously, again, you'll set your filters, you'll do whatever you need to do to get to that population and sample you want to get to. But here we can see only one agent currently that's been flagged that hasn't done on any of their calls. And now if you click again, it takes you into your call list for that agent with all those calls where they did not do what they were supposed to do. So that was everything from my side. I said I was going to keep it short and simple and sweet. I would like to rather allow more time where there's any questions or anything else, Rod, that you would want to discuss. But I think it's the basics is you can take your QA checks wherever there is something that must be mentioned and that must be said on that call, you can build a query for it. There's a verification and accuracy process behind it, which makes it scientific. You know it's true. If you're comfortable with that, you can build your scorecard. You can have a percentage score. You flag the outliers by means of automatic assessment. And in that way, your QA can now start spending more valuable time. Instead of listening to calls, they can now start coaching and training and listening for other things and more strategically. But that was me. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Before you stop sharing,
Oh, sorry.
sorry,
Yes, right.
we do have a couple of questions coming in, which I'll send
Okay.
to you in a few moments. But
Perfect.
just if you could just spend a few minutes just explaining the word cloud. It's been there. We'll detail it when we do much more detailed demonstrations. But I think just for the purposes of the people on this webinar, if you could just touch on the power of the word cloud and how you would use it in an assessment. And the second part of that is if you would also just touch on how we use tags.
Okay.
Then I will get to, thanks very much. We got 1, 2, 3 good questions coming in just now, but Henriette, if you would just take it away on the word cloud, then we'll come back to the questions.
Okay, excellent. So you'll see in front of you, like Rod has mentioned, what we call the word cloud. You will also see this where you've built your queries, where on your query result, it would show you a word cloud if you go in there. So let me just show you one, for instance, agent introduced self. You'll see also here, it gives you that word cloud. Now the word cloud is basically just a list of words most regularly or most often used in that selection of calls. Now I know a lot of people would say, but okay, that doesn't mean anything. So why are you showing me the word cloud? The beauty of this, it's a once-off that you need to work through your word cloud. You can remove any of these words that is not important, that is obsolete. So if you click on the word and you exclude it, you go through that process, it would then remove these obsolete words, and it then starts showing you meaningful words and phrases in terms of understanding what is being said either by customer or agent on certain types of calls. Now, I've seen this used very effectively. For instance, if you look at the word clouds of your top 3 agents versus your bottom 3 agents in a sales environment or in a collections environment, to see what's the type of words, phrases, positive, negative, that's being used in there. But that's the meaningfulness of the word cloud. It drills down into those prominent words and phrases as you've removed the obsolete words. That's the word cloud. Rod, what was the other thing you've just, what's the tags that I need to show?
Tags,
right?
yeah, please.
Okay, perfect. You'll see also within Callbi, any call that you work on, and I almost call it like a post-it. If you think about a post-it note, you've got the ability to leave a note on a call where anybody else can then use that note to go back to the call, to filter on the call. So I'm going to show you. Here you go. Let's just add a test tag on this one. Let's go say I'm going to create a tag. So you can create your own tags, or these tags that has been created that you can select from. For this, I'm just going to say a demo tag. I've created that tag. You can tag a call with as many tags as you need to. So if you need to flag it for training, Lee, I see you've asked a question around escalation processes. If those tags are added in there and you've got the process where you know somebody needs to search according to those tags, they can filter on those tags and it gets escalated. So they can then take action where they need to. So it's an operational process you'll need to train on your coaches or training, but they can use tags to flag these calls. So let's just add that demo tag. Demo tag, I'm adding it. You'll see now that it's been added, you can use these tags in your filters. You can filter according to tags. You can use it in your queries. You can use it to segregate, slice and dice. So if we go to the calls and we use the filter, and you'll see under calls, the filter, there is a space where you can now filter according to tags. So that's the tags. It's leaving a post-it note for later reference or for categorization or for escalation that you can use it. We also use it in the accuracy process, which obviously I'm not going to focus on for today.
Thank you, Henriette. There's another interesting query or question come in from Kristen Goodman. Kristen asks, how many queries can be loaded or set up within Callbi?
So I always say I'm not the techie. I'm not the one who's going to show you the limitations. Up until now, I have not seen a limitation. Like I said, we've got clients with over 3 million, 2 million calls in there and various queries. You'll see you can add 50 rows per page. I've seen more than 3-5 pages. So I think that's something, Rod, if you can take it away just to confirm exactly, but I have not seen a limitation. I say the world is your oyster currently, because as far as I've seen, I haven't seen a limitation.
Right, thank you very much. And then an interesting question from Denishan Chetty. Denishan asks, what is the transcription accuracy against the languages available? I'm going to ask our specialist in here, Corey Springer, to actually answer that offline, but we are getting accuracy levels up to 70–80% on South African English, Afrikaans, isiZulu, and Sesotho at the moment. Now, there's a further way of enhancing that accuracy, and that's Callbi has a facility to build custom language directories. In other words, if there are particular words and phrases in your industry and your business, you would instruct Callbi to, for example, if the example that we use is if a typical transcription would take the word my way as my and way, but those of us in the industry and as customers, we know that my way is an insurance company. So we would teach Callbi certain words and phrases to link them and to do those transcriptions. That increases the accuracy level. But we will certainly get back to you with very specific information about that. John Polton, thanks John for that nice question. I think Henriette, you can answer this one, is do supervisors have direct access to their agents' calls only? And can they listen and coach but not do any editing? So over to you, Henriette.
Yeah. Thanks, Rod. John, very good question. At the moment, yes, we've got the functionality to either be an administrator, or if you're not an administrator, it's like a read or view access only. That prohibits or stops them from being able to edit anything. I mean, obviously, and you'll understand, you don't want everybody to have access to building queries, because that's your more analytical side. You'll have 1 or 2 people, maybe 3 people that you've trained up to ensure your accuracy, and then your team leaders can view. With regards to your question, can they only access their own agent's calls? At the moment, there isn't a segregator, but I know we're making notes, and I always say we make Callbi better and better as we go along. So that's definitely something that we make a note of, and we can add that onto the development roadmap. It is a good suggestion. At the moment, there isn't segregation, but they can't edit anything. They can view. So even in your dashboard layouts, if you want, you can go create separate layouts for every team leader. So they don't need to access anybody else's layout. They can just go straight into their own layout. So you can have team leader name, and you can set it up for them to only view their own calls and what they need to view.
Excellent. Hold that slide there, please, Henriette, because Nicole Lewis has come up with a really interesting question, which the answer I'm sure everybody will find interesting. Nicole's question is, can Callbi be integrated with existing systems, for example, Microsoft Dynamics, etc.? The answer to that is absolutely. There's an open APIs, easy in, easy out. Henriette, if we just show on that one of the dashboard cards how easy it is for us to either export dashboards or the summaries either as PDF or as CSVs, and take that straight into any one of your third-party analytics tools, Power BI. So if you just show how those little buttons.
Okay, thanks, Rod. So very easy, and like I say to everybody when I train, wherever you see the 3 dots, always click on it. It invites you to click on it because it means there's something for you to do. If you click on it, you always get the functionality to download. So where it is something like a picture view, it would download currently into PDF. Any of your call lists where you've got details like this, like Excel, if you click and you download, it downloads as a CSV file. Now this then obviously, as you know, would open up as Excel. I'm not sure if it's going to show now because I think I only shared my normal screen, but it opens up similar to an Excel spreadsheet. So I always say I love Excel. I'm old school like Excel. There you can look at doing other analysis and using that information for something else. I also know, Rod, like you've mentioned, there is API integration, which is possible, but that's as far as I know. I'm putting the disclaimer again, I'm not the techie, but I know you can integrate via API.
Excellent. We've got a little bit of extra time. Henriette, I wonder if we could go a little bit backwards There's an aspect of Callbi which I think is really important, particularly when we start looking at drilling down, and that's the use of metadata in the analytics. So if we just talk about how we upload voice files in tandem with a selection of metadata, if you expand on that slightly.
Okay, what I'm just going to show you, what you'll see in front of you is your list of all your calls and transcripts that's currently active and available within Callbi. So you'll see in how the list works, you get every line is an actual call recording that has been transcribed, and then every column added to it is the data or metadata associated to that call. Now, Callbi has standard fields, so when you upload the recording, you upload the recordings, and there's also a CSV metadata file that you upload together with those recordings that links back to the recording. Now, there's standard fields, for instance, the time, if you've got agent name in there, you can add agent extension, issue link. I actually also want to touch on the duration columns. Please remind me, Rod, because this is something I also think it's really nifty. But then it also has, there you'll see your tags at a glance, any team, so you can add team manager, line manager, call center manager. You also have up to 10 custom data fields. So anything that's not standard, if you want to add anything else, for instance, call reason, direction of call, inbound, outbound, call outcome, this then allows you, when you start filtering or building dashboard cards and graphs, if you've built a query, that query is probably not applicable to every single call. And it's the example that I've given, that on a sales environment, you only want to QA sales, perhaps, and not interested. So you're not really worried about the callbacks or the voicemails or the anything in between. So that's where the metadata comes in, and it really helps if you are able to add as much metadata as you can into that, because it would help you filter and again slice and dice into the specific population that you are looking at. But that's the metadata.
As well, Henriette, and just to share with the participants, we had a very interesting workshop yesterday, an internal session. We were looking at what other data could we put into those metadata fields. And it literally runs to dozens and dozens, but some very interesting ones we were discussing with, for example, in the collections industry or profession, we'd be looking at the book, at the matters at hand, the call disposition, very important in there. We also started looking at, we could interface perhaps with an HR system and get the agent's tenure. Is a young, inexperienced agent, how they're performing against agents who've been with the organization much longer. So this concept of building the metadata fields alongside the transcription fields and how we use those adds immensely to the power of Callbi. Then you wanted to look at the duration column, and while you're doing that, Henriette, won't you also address that wonderful world of the sounds of silence?
This is exactly what I wanted to chat about, and that's why I thought I want to show this. And on the example QA scorecard we did in Excel on your presentation a bit earlier, we referred to the handle time. So all those questions looking at handle time, did the agent deal sufficiently with the call? Were there silences? Were there things like that? Now, a very nifty thing that's built in Callbi is it automatically already calculates for you. You'll see these columns. Now, I always say the beauty of this is without even having been trained on building a query, you can start using Callbi to address inefficiencies. So in Callbi, you will see there's a total duration column. Now, this is the total duration of the recording from start up until end. You then also have in there, Callbi calculates your conversation duration. Now, conversation is regarded as anywhere where there was words being said. So if there was music playing in the background, silence, background noise, it wouldn't transcribe, and that would be regarded as silence. Now, obviously, the difference between the two would be that silence, and it calculates that as a silence percentage. Now, here, again, we all know that silence points to inefficiencies. It's either product knowledge, the agent was looking for something, they couldn't answer, they were looking through a knowledge base, having their hand raised, waiting for on-floor support, or there's a system issue, especially now with a lot of work from home, where there's network lag, latency issues, they're waiting for the system to return, or it's agent behavior. So similarly, as part of that silence, Callbi also calculates what part of the silence happened at the end of your conversation. Now, this is after the last word was transcribed or was written or said, up until the recording was ended. Now, again, this very much points to wrapping issues, notes at the end, or agent behavior, where an agent does not want to end the call because it means they don't need to take or make the next call. So very easy, these columns you can toggle, or you can build cards, and I'm going to show you, you can build actual dashboard lists that looks at certain thresholds. I'm just quickly waiting for it to open up. That would then flag your top agents where there is a very high percentage. And let's quickly build a card for you and you'll see how easy it becomes. So let's edit a card. Let's edit it to say we want to see calls with silence more than 40% for this card. We want to group it by agent. We want to see number of calls. I'm not sure if you're going to have it in here because I think because of the demo calls, there might not be a lot. If we now filter, you select your filter to only flag calls where the silence percentage was 40% or higher. If we now select, it would show you, you'll see as I put the filter a bit down, I think there might not be a lot of high silences. Let's make this calls with 5% or more, or 10%. I just want to show you the effectiveness. It will now show you per agent a list of calls where there's very high silences or where there's very high duration of silences. Similarly, you can build a card where you can look for very high post-conversation silences. So again, instead of now hoping on your random call sampling that you're picking up on silences or where they're not speaking, you now have 100% of your calls where it gets calculated. So that was the silences and the sounds of silence. And why it's so important, because it immediately points towards efficiencies, product, knowledge, training, and agent behavior.
Excellent. Oops. Let me come back in again. Excellent. Thank you so much, Henriette. Another interesting question come in from Dennis and Chetty. How does the software integrate with the on-site call recording platforms, and where do these recordings sit? Dennis, that's very simple. Callbi doesn't need to integrate technically into the existing call recording solutions. You can have any solution you like, as long as we are able to export unencrypted recording files, along with and in parallel the metadata with those calls. So those calls are uploaded into an AWS in Ireland. So there's the answer to where those calls are housed. So it goes off to AWS Ireland. You can set up automated routines to, for example, export your calls once a day, or for that matter, every hour. And literally within 15, 20, 30 minutes, the analytics becomes available to the person doing the building and using the queries. So we don't need to integrate into existing recording systems. We just need those files. The other question that comes out fairly often is about accuracy. The Callbi has an algorithm that separates the two parties, speaker and agent, for example. It does that through its own algorithm if it's a mono recording. First prize is to get a stereo recording, which gives you 100% speaker separation. So I hope that answers your question there. We would certainly like to have a one-on-one with you, Jason, and my colleague Corey Springer, who's listening in on this call, I'll be delighted to do a full-on demonstration and get into some of the technicalities as well. Let's see, do we have any other questions coming through? John Polton again. Thanks, John. You always keep us on our toes. Can you select which calls are archived? Save calls with successful sales calls for X number of years, and save calls with no sales for 90 days, just for QA and coaching. Henriette, are you able to answer those?
Rod, no, unfortunately not. I was just wondering, are you able to maybe bring Francois into the conversation? I'm not sure if you've got the functionality.
Let's see.
He's...
Francois, can I bring you in to talk? Are you there?
Hi, Rod. Thanks. Yes, I'm here, definitely.
Can I introduce you quickly to everybody present? Francois Duplessis is the CEO of Callbi, and also the head honcho when it comes to matters of technology. So, Francois, you're live.
Thanks. John, that's a good question. So we do offer the ability to store calls for a longer period. As Callbi is a fairly new product, we haven't actually come across a case where someone has officially requested it. So the functionality is available, but it hasn't yet been activated. So if it's something that interests you, then we can definitely have a chat afterwards.
Okay, Francois, thanks for that. Just while we've got you live, Denison asked the questions around software integration issues. Can I suggest that we set up a one-on-one after this particular session? Denison, if you have any further questions on that, please just engage with us and be very happy to address those. Are there any other questions coming through? No other questions on that. Francois, would you like to add anything before we do a wrap?
No, I just want to thank you, Henriette and Rod, for doing this wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed it myself. Thanks for everyone attending, and we look forward to engaging with you. If you're interested in doing a pilot, or if you have any more questions, I really think that there's a lot of value to be added in your contact center, and we are very willing to work with you to try and adapt to help you achieve your goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. So I think really that is a wrap, and from my side, it's thank you very much, particularly to Callbi and to Francois for hosting this particular event and for supporting our contact center showcase initiatives, which is to share information about technologies and services in the call center industry. And Henriette, great stuff. Thank you very much. I know you put a lot of work into preparing for today, so I really appreciate that. So any further information, please visit the Callbi website. There you see it on the screen right now, or you can drop me an email. And if you would like a one-on-one demonstration with the Callbi team, please, once again, just email us. We're more than happy to set that up for you. So without further ado, we've come in at 45 minutes, which I think is a record. So your time is as valuable as it comes. So thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the day. Stay safe, stay well. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Rod.